Welcome to a new episode of VR Supercar, and today we're in a very warm Tustin, California at the Marconi Automotive Museum and Foundation for Kids, and you're going to go inside and see an impressive collection of cars, some of which can't be seen anywhere else in the world. Follow me. Here we are today at the Marconi Automotive Museum and Foundation for Kids, and we're with CEO Priscilla Bo Marconi.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you. Tell us about this incredible museum and this incredible collection of cars.
Okay, great. Well, so my husband Dick founded the museum in 1994, and he amassed all of these cars. He's kind of an eclectic person, but he loves high-performance street cars and race cars, largely Ferraris and Lamborghinis, American muscle cars, open-wheel race cars. So at the time when he founded it, we had a race shop, and I raced cars, Dick raced, his son raced, and so he built the museum to put his race team in, and then he brought all of his cars in. And after he was here about a year or so, he said, I want to give back. And so he formulated the Marconi Foundation for Kids. So we're two pieces, but we run under one business, Marconi Automotive Museum, and then the Foundation for Kids. And it's our goal to help raise money annually for different at-risk children's charities in Orange County and beyond. And we do that by hosting lots of events here. People love the cars. Whether you like cars or not, I think, let's say people that don't like cars, they love the colors. They love the shine, the polish. So it's a great place to come and mix and mingle and visit with your friends and enjoy the cars as well.
So speaking of events, we've got this setup. Describe yes. What's actually happening with this. Is there an event happening?
Yeah, we have an event happening. This is the center of our room. And we've got the swagging, which covers the basic area. And then up here, we have this giant screen so that your guests can enjoy, if you're doing a video montage or a sales presentation, if it's a business environment. We don't usually have the swagging up for business stuff, so I believe we have a wedding coming in.
Which I should know about because I got married at this very museum almost 10 years ago, and it was an awesome experience. And yes, we did have a slideshow playing here. Ironic that you mentioned that. So one of the questions I have is, how do you decide what car to add to the collection? Is there a process? Is there,
Well, we're currently in a really good position because Dick has decided that he doesn't like to sell cars, and he's kind of done buying cars. As you can see, the museum is pretty full. But what is great for us is that we have several people that store their cars here, and we're kind of picky because they have to be show quality unless they're race cars. Sometimes in race car situations, there's so much that comes off the ground that it wrecks the paint. So that's one thing.
Like this car right here.
Yes, like the Momo car here. But ordinarily, we want them to be pretty show quality and higher end cars. So we've got some here on loan, and they come and go, and that keeps the collection fresh.
So this car has history because you used to race it.
Yes, well actually this car and the car up here. So the one on the wall is a vintage race car. It's 1963, and this is the Ferrari Challenge car, and this car ran in the inaugural race in 1994. It was originally red, and the guys in Ferrari wanted to sell cars to women, and so thus I got involved in this because I was racing in the vintage circuit. So I said, well, all Ferraris are red. So you can't have a red Ferrari, it has to be a different color. They said, all right, we're willing to paint it, what would you like? I said, well, it has to be the atomic blueberry, like the atomic blueberry on the wall. So thus, they took it all apart and they painted it purple. So my racing history is such that I started in the mid-pack out of about 40 men. Dick sent me over to Bob Bondurant's school in Arizona, and I came out of there after 4 days. I was just sure I could beat everybody. I was so very skilled. Well, this is not true. And once I got into racing, and you really get in the feel of, especially in an open wheel car, you're very low to the ground, kind of like a go-kart, and you have the wind rushing in and all of these sensations that you don't have in a regular car when you've got windows and lots of stuff around you. So it took me a while to really acclimate. And then I had the good fortune of a fellow that came over from Europe who was a Formula 3000 driver, and he came over because he wanted to get into Indy cars. So Dick helped him find an Indy ride, and while they were doing that, he said, all right, you become Bo's instructor. So he would go out with the race team and me, and we'd go all over America and Canada racing in the Challenge Series. But the thing is that because it's a two-seater, he could sit in the passenger seat and watch my lines and help me, you know, gain time and braking distances, and then he would switch positions with me, and it was so aggravating to me because he's English, he's from Yorkshire.
Oh, yes.
And so he had this accent that was hard to understand to begin with, and he was fearless. So he would be driving along looking at me. We're heading straight for disaster. Of course, there was no disaster because he knew exactly what he was doing. Well, I would become so anxious and get so mad at him for scaring me that when we switched positions again, I'd knock a couple seconds off my time, which in racing, a couple seconds is a big deal.
Yeah.
So
it's the difference between losing and winning.
Absolutely. So as a result of his tutelage, by the end of that season, it moved me from mid-pack to the top 5. So I was very thankful for that. I did have the opportunity to consider getting into Indy Lights and Indy cars. I chose not to do that because I didn't want to die, and I didn't feel like I had anything to prove in that department. And you know, when you get into professional racing, you're gone all the time, you're testing cars, and it just wasn't my passion. But I had a great time racing. It was great fun, met lots of wonderful people in the process.
Beautiful color, and for history, this used to be the high-end Ferrari dealer that is no more in Newport Beach.
That's right, and it was Newport Imports actually that painted the car and backed us, and Herbalife was one of our sponsors, and so it was great fun. And actually a really cool thing was after we got out of racing in this series, Asprey's got into it in the 355 series, and then they took this color and went on for a couple years.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So where are we at now?
Well, right now we are looking at Dick's Formula Atlantic car up in the wall, the Herbalife car. And of course they would be remiss not to talk about it because he founded the museum. But the interesting factoids about Dick is he's blind in his left eye. So, you know, that's pretty tricky for a racer.
Especially because you have no stereo peripheral
right.
vision.
And he's always talked about that depth perception, but he has got great courage and great talent, and he had really good instructions and a lot of seat time. So he was 60. He was the oldest man to ever qualify for the Long Beach Grand Prix, and he did it in this car. And he started in 18th spot and finished in 8th. So it was like the turtle in the hare, or the tortoise in the hare, and he would say that he got to 8th a little bit by attrition. Everybody kept crashing in front of him. But you know, to be 60 and blind in your left eye, it's a pretty big accomplishment. And you can see we have lots of memorabilia on the walls of his racing history and the whole family's racing history. So yeah, he loved racing and he was really good at it, went all over the country. So we wanted to commemorate. It's got his helmet. He's half Russian and half Italian, and the helmet tells that story.
In my opinion, two of the most eclectic cars you have is this Ferrari FX and this Ferrari 456 convertible, because they came from a private collection that nobody outside of Brunei has ever seen. And as far as I know, these are the only two that aren't in Brunei that were custom designed for the Sultan Prince Jeffrey's collection. What can you tell us?
Well, you just said it all. No, you're right. That's absolutely right. So these are two of my favorite cars, and the 456. This was the only 456 built in the convertible fashion. So it's the body, but it's the only convertible. You'll notice the beautiful green, emerald green, the matching interior that was all done as per the instructions of Sultan Brunei. So they have a royal garage, and the royal garage houses 2,500 one-off cars. Now, we think we're pretty spectacular that we have 75 cars, and very few of ours are one-off. You can imagine having an entire 2,500 car garage, all with cars that you thought up or designed in some fashion. So these two cars come from that empire. Mm-hmm. And I love this car. I love the motor. It's an automatic, which is great because, as you can see, it's right-hand drive, and that gets a little gnarly when you're used to shifting with your right hand instead of the left hand, so it's great that it is an automatic. The FX was built on a Testarossa chassis, but the body was designed specifically, again, for the Sultan of Brunei's collection, the color specifically for him. It's got the logo on the side. But the really trick thing about this is that the gearbox was designed by Frank Williams, who does all the Formula One gearboxes. So I believe it was one of the first paddle shifts when those were not
I think it completely predates what Ferrari put on their road cars,
So it's crazy because of modern technology, computers. You can remember 10 years ago, now it is so archaic. Well, that is the tricky part of this car, is that the original electronics and computer system are so completely outdated that it becomes a bit of a challenge to find the right parts to keep everything running. So it is a beloved car. People come from all around the world to see it, and you know, to see the back of it is phenomenal. The front, the whole design, it's just a crazy great car, and everybody loves it.
Well, speaking of running, do all the cars here run? And one would assume when you walk into a museum that once these cars come here, they never run again. Is there a maintenance program? How does that work?
You know, we kind of sit in the middle of the road on that. The cars are scattered all over. Mainly the back row of cars in the museum don't run. And what we decided and determined over the years is, because we're a nonprofit, we want to make sure that we spend our money wisely. And you can imagine trying to keep a collection like this up and running and in perfect condition would put us out for business in no time. So what we've done is we've chosen to pickle some of the cars to hold their value, and then I would say 70% of them do run. Because we do special events, our event team is tasked with moving the cars because it's not a static collection. So we want to keep as many of them running as possible so that they don't have to push them so often. Obviously the open wheel cars over here, none of these run, although I will tell you that one of the valuable thing about our collection is all of our open wheel cars do have working engines in them.
Okay.
So this car that you're standing right in front of was driven by Nigel Mansell. It was also driven by K.K. Rosberg's grandson. It's got a lot of great history. We're thrilled to have that in the collection. And then where I'm standing is an Indy car, so you can see there's a little bit of difference between the design of them. And this was the backup car that Mario Andretti drove the last year that he raced, which I believe was 93 or 94. Coincidentally, he and Dick were the oldest men to be on the track in that year. Now, he was in the Indy Series, Dick was in the Formula Atlantic Series, and I'll talk a little bit more about that car. So it's just great to have a car, again, that has great race history. It won the Phoenix Oval in that year, the last year he raced. So we're thrilled with all the collection, but these cars obviously don't run.
So of all of these cars, outside of the two that we've seen and then the car that you raced, do you have any personal favorites? And if so, should we go take a look at them?
Sure, let's do that.